Room 237 is a JumperScape audio production. Oh, what a terrible fate you've fallen to, stranger. You're now locked in Room 237.
Hello and welcome to Room 237, the inaugural episode of a very special podcast to me. It's our horror movie podcast, and on this show, we're going to do a lot of things. It's going to be really fun. We're just basically going to go through horror history, pick out movies that we want to see, that you want to see talked about, going through anything that could possibly be imagined. But the idea of this show came about when me and my girlfriend saw a movie and we just were talking, shooting it in the car, and thought, man, wouldn't it be a great podcast if you just got raw reactions, like you're sitting in the car with your friends after going to the theater and watching a movie for the first time. And that's what this show is going to be all about. It's going to be just you and us. Raw reactions, funny moments, theories, and a little bit of behind the scenes to go along. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is James, and I am a horror fanatic. I have been a fan of horror since my dad showed me the It miniseries when I was probably way too young. And I've always wanted to do something with horror, something creative, something fun, something to sink my teeth into. And this is the beginning of that journey, and I'm really excited. So hopefully you enjoy this journey with us.
Yeah, and I'm Ashton. I'm James's girlfriend. So if you know him from the library, now you know I'm real. But
why you gotta do me like that?
I'm pretty new to the horror genre. In fact, it's something that's intrigued me since I was really young, but I have very intense anxiety. So I always thought that horror was not really for me. So actually, I know a lot of random factoids about horror from not watching horror movies, but instead watching the kill counts for said horror movies. So if you hear me be like, oh, that's a big horror thing that horror fanatics know, that's how I know that. But I've never seen most of the movies that we're going to cover. So I'm going to be giving you that fresh new perspective on everything. And if you're new to horror, you can come along on the journey with me.
And, you know, what's exciting about this is, before I go forward, I have to give some kind of thank you to Dead Meat.
Oh, yeah.
Because honestly, it's pretty obvious. We're a boyfriend and girlfriend who like to get scared together.
Wow, calling them out right away.
I just want to say, James A. Janice, Chelsea Rebecca, huge inspiration. Maybe one day you'll listen to this, and that'd be really cool.
Please notice us, please.
Please notice us.
Please.
Oh, man. But with that being said, before we get into today's film, if you want to chat, if you want to connect with us, you can find us over on JumperScape/Discord/GG. I already messed it up. I'm learning. Discord.gg/JumperScape if you want to connect on our Discord. And if you want to support us, of course, you can head over to patreon.com/JumperScape. And if you want to maybe, toss us a little tip, you can go over to Coffee, which is ko-fi/JumperScape. That would be a huge help, be a great show of support. We hope to see some horror fans kind of come into our Discord and, chat with all the Halo fans already there, because we're going to need it. We want your input. We want your movie ideas. We want everything that you can throw at us. So
yeah, Yeah, please join the Discord because I say nothing in there right now.
She has no idea what a Halo is. So.
Okay, I've played a little Halo.
A little bit. We're on that journey. Like we're on that journey.
I am on my Halo journey, but I don't know how to interact with the Discord because I know like the tiniest minuscule amount about Halo. Like it's a game titled Halo.
Yeah, well... By the time this comes out, the Discord channels will be all there. You can come and talk about horror with us, get our input, get our opinions. I know I have a lot of them. It might be a little overwhelming, but it'll be really fun. So please join us.
Yes, please do. All right. And our movie today is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, but the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974.
Can you tell where this is the first episode? This movie is very important.
Super important.
This movie is extremely important. So important it's our first episode.
Yeah. And arguably, okay, this is controversial, but could or could not be the first slasher film. Maybe.
This is a spicy take.
Okay.
This is a hot take. I don't know if you know how hot of a take that is.
It's a very hot take. That's why I said could or could not be.
That is true.
I'm keeping it ambiguous. Thank you. I can't say words.
It's okay. We're doing great. Mr. Tobe Hooper directed this movie. Legend, absolute legend. And I definitely was extremely excited to revisit this movie because it is so funny to me. That's the end of my statement. It is like a masterpiece in depravity and just complete disgust. But I've memed the hell out of this movie in my head that there's just parts I look forward to every single, just stupid lines. But it's good whenever I get to watch it again because then like I remember how uncomfortable this movie is.
I was super excited to watch this movie because I've been waiting to watch this movie for this podcast. I have been avoiding so much stuff to try to keep from knowing everything about this movie because it's just so like iconic. Like it's everywhere. You don't know how much something is everywhere until you're trying to avoid it.
Yeah. Well, because like a little more backstory for this podcast. It was around October when we started kind of brainstorming, having the idea to do this. And it came about because we were watching pretty much as many horror movies as we could watch because it's something I love and it's something I wanted to share with her. But then when this idea came about to do a podcast about it, suddenly, boom, no more horror movie watching. We got to save it because I wanted her more raw first time viewing reactions to these movies. And this is a great movie to have first reactions to because it's gross.
It is gross.
I mean,
we're definitely gross.
The thing is, we're probably going to cover much grosser movies in the future. But, this one is definitely up there. Now, kind of the start of this movie is immediately gross. And that's what makes it so good.
Wait, back up. So the beginning of the movie starts with like just text on the screen being read aloud.
And it's so spooky.
Yeah, it's almost like the start of a documentary, which I didn't realize was an early horror. I know it's a horror trend later.
Yes.
When we get into like the 90s, like every other horror movie, I feel like is like, this is based on a true story.
Yeah, excuse my ignorance. Maybe this is probably one of the earliest examples of a movie really stretching the based on a true story.
It's a mockumentary.
Not really.
Yeah,
it starts like a mockumentary.
And then it just decides to not
and then
go
it's
by
just
that
a movie.
At all. Yeah.
Because a mockumentary is still a documentary,
yeah, that's true.
But it's BS. But this starts like a mockumentary. It kind of frames it like you are watching the events happen in real time. And that these are events that really happened in real life. Because like I think the remake kind of does it a little more on the nose, like saying this is based on true events. I'm sure if you watch the trailer for the remake, it probably says based on true events. It is very loosely, we'll get into why later. It is very loosely based on Ed Gein's crimes. That was the main inspiration for the Sawyer family. Is basically Tobe Hooper probably thought to himself, what if Ed Gein was like a whole family of people?
Well, and it's kind of funny because I ended up looking that up because I kind of recognized I have seen Silence of the Lambs. And I was like, why does Leatherface has makeup on? Does he have makeup on his fake face? And that reminded me of the serial killer in Silence of the Lambs.
Bill.
Yeah, Buffalo Bill. And then this is a whole train of thought, guys. You're coming down this whole hole with me, okay? So then I'm like, wait a minute. I was listening to this podcast once about how horror movies are based on true, real things like serial killers. And I remember that, what was his name? Ed Gein. Sorry, Ed Gein. I remember that they mentioned him when talking about Silence of the Lambs, and I was like, I wonder if it's the same thing. And I was right.
100%.
It was. And also, fun fact, the movie Psycho is also based upon him.
It's not as on the nose, but yes.
No, yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of what Psycho draws from is his behaviors, not his
Psycho. Maybe we'll cover that later. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge.
But the whole kind of mockumentary style opening, really sets the tone of the movie. And then you get there are many trademarks in the Texas Chainsaw series. The first one that you see is the iconic flashbulb sound effect. Austin, if you're fully listening and editing, you'll put the flashbulb in right now. Thank you. Maybe. Or I hate you. One of the two. But, you get the flashbulb, and back in this is one of the scenes where the flashbulb makes sense because it's actually taking pictures of a rotting corpse, and it's your first glimpse into the just gnarly practical effects in this movie, because every body, every decaying piece of nature, anything that had flesh on it at one point just looks absolutely disgusting.
Oh yeah. It kind of gave me the vibe of like when you're riding Pirates of the Caribbean in Disney after finding out that some of originally the bones were real people's bones. That's how I felt sort of watching this.
And I'm finding this out for the first time.
Most of them aren't there anymore. Fun fact.
That's good.
But some of them are rumored to still be human remains.
Very fun.
Oh yeah.
Love it. Love to see it. But the title sequence kind of what it explains to you is you hear just kind of what is essentially a radio news report explaining a series of grave robbings that's been happening. And that's all you really need to know why our merry band of teenagers is doing what they're doing. And that's when we're introduced to our little band of teenagers, and that would be Franklin, Sally, Pam. His name's Jerry, but Dead Meat has me thinking Disco Stew. So thanks, thanks, James. Other James, and then
Kirk.
Okay,
yeah.
The most
like
generic
the
70s dude that you've ever seen in your life.
They're all actually my first note of the actual film is, oh my God, the 70s.
They all encapsulate every type of 70s person that could exist.
Absolutely.
Sally could be on that 70s show. Then you have Pam, the original astrology bitch. I immediately just kind of stared at Ashton, and I got a real nice middle finger for that one.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, they're all likable, except I hate Franklin.
I can't believe this.
He's so annoying.
No, he's just
throughout the entire movie.
Leave him alone.
How do you know?
It literally says that in the opening credits.
It did.
Yeah. It said he was mentally handicapped. Mentally and physically handicapped.
Now I want to drop this I hate Franklin through line that I had planned because now I feel really bad.
You didn't pick up on that?
No, I thought he was just annoying. Anyway, moving on. Pam, she's real into astrology, man. Retrograde. All
and
that.
She said that Venus was in retrograde. And it was like...
Can you explain what any of this means?
No. I just know that when my co-star says I'm going to have a good day, I'm going to have a good day, okay?
Do you let it influence your day if it says you're going to have a bad day?
Sometimes.
Oh.
It's like when I wake up, it's like back when No Bones was a thing. And I knew when I woke up and it was No Bones Day that, damn, it was going to suck.
Well, Sally and Franklin, they're siblings.
Yes.
And they're going to go check and make sure their grandpa's grave wasn't robbed because they hear about this on the news.
Mm-hmm.
And then we meet the drunkest man I've ever seen.
So incredibly intoxicated.
I fully believe that he was not an extra. They just found him there and they filmed him because... he serves as our harbinger role. Mm-hmm. As we go on, there'll be a lot of harbingers, a lot of famous ones. Friday the 13th. I can't wait to get to that. Love that man. I forgot his name. He wears the fisherman hat. You all know, hopefully. But he's just drunkenly rambling about, I've seen things here. I've seen a lot. And it's just like, what do you know? What do you know, old man?
And I swear to God, they put in like a sound effect of like his stomach gurgling, like right when he laid back. Because I was like, oh my God, that's what it sounds like when I'm about to throw up. This man's about to throw up. I don't want to see this man throw up.
Upside down, too.
Yeah, for real.
He's just laying with his like head. I don't even know how you do that.
It's possible.
But he's my favorite, and I want to get a beer with that man. All
right.
Got a little off topic there. But all's good. And then checking, what most people do when they check to see if their grandpa, his corpse was, lifted from its grave and robbed and done God knows what with. Decide to go party at their abandoned grandpa's house because that's their mission.
Yes. So they start on their way there.
And on their way there, they pick up probably the best character in the movie, in my opinion. That's the hitchhiker. Mm-hmm. Also known as Nubbins. A lot of their names you don't know until Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So if I refer to them by their actual names, whoopsie.
Yeah, because the IMDb just cites him as Hitchhiker James.
But his name is Nubbins.
That's not what IMDb says.
His name is Nubbins. His name is Nubbins.
Fine.
It's great.
Fine.
And it's probably one of the best performances in the entire movie.
He's a James Franco lookalike.
Yeah. I think this is what James Franco does in his spare time. Because
other than the other things we know about,
other than that, because this is definitely like the greatest PSA for not picking up a hitchhiker that has ever been like shown in any form of media.
And this is where I started Ashton's list of things I wouldn't do.
What is the first thing on your list of things you wouldn't do?
Pick up a hitchhiker.
You heard it here first, folks. don't pick up a hitchhiker.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Because, you know,
just because I wouldn't do it, that's why you shouldn't do it, obviously.
what could happen is that hitchhiker could make just about everyone in the world uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
So he's just kind of, they figure they picked him up from the slaughterhouse. They just passed. He says, no, I don't work there, but he doesn't elaborate any further.
Nope.
But he seems very headstrong in his belief that the air gun is no good and the hammer's better.
Yeah.
They died better that way, you know?
That's what he says.
They go on a whole discussion about how, it's better to hit the cattle in the head with a hammer than to use the air gun that kills them instantly because, gun's no good.
Mm-hmm. And he also has what I thought was a birthmark, but I have later now learned that was just blood all over his face.
I was like, birthmark? What are you talking? I was like,
no, that was just blood all over his face, and they let him in the car.
And well, like I said, I think that's the excuse they give is they assume they just picked him up from working at the slaughterhouse, and that's why he got blood on him.
Yeah, I'm not letting any. Rule number 1, don't pick up a hitchhiker. Rule number 2, if you don't follow rule number 1, is to never pick up a hitchhiker with blood on their face.
But what if he's got a nice smile? Because
he doesn't have a nice smile.
What are you talking about?
He has
Look at
a
him.
creepy smile.
Look at him.
That man is the creepiest man I've ever seen that looks like James Franco.
He's creepier than James Franco. I think that's debatable.
That's debatable, yeah.
But he definitely is probably the creepiest performance in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely up there with the cook, who we'll talk about later. But he really is just kind of unhinged. And my favorite bit is he just takes a picture of Franklin and he just tries to sell it to him. He's just like,
it's a good picture.
It's a good picture.
It's a good picture.
It's a good picture. $5. Like,
he said $2.
$2.
$2. It's a good picture. It was a bad picture, first of all.
And, God. He used the original Times Square like mascot. In
the middle of a highway in Texas.
Yeah. Everyone in Times Square dressed as Elmo is inspired by Nubbins the hitchhiker. Because they just eventually they clearly finally start getting a little scared of him. I would have been scared of him the second he walked into the car.
Yeah, well, they really start to question him when he takes a knife from Franklin and just cuts open his hand.
Giggling all the way through it.
Yeah, he was just laughing. And
you think any normal person would kick him out of the car then.
They didn't.
The picture happened after that.
Yeah, they didn't kick him out of the car. They just looked at him like he was a weirdo.
And he's just like, oh, you could take me home. And it's like, I'm sitting there wondering, what is the plan if you take him home? What is his plan? Because I'd say in this situation, there would be 2 of them and 5 of you. Right? Like, you think you could take him? Maybe? In open field? I
wouldn't even consider it. I would just kick him out of the car.
Yeah, that's true. That makes more sense. But, I'm going along with the brain of the characters. But, to be fair, only after he decides to just take a razor blade and be like, I got a knife too. Look at my knife. Like, isn't it nice? It's a nice knife.
No, you forgot to mention that he burns the picture.
Oh, yeah. He just whips some gunpowder out of his little fur pouch and burns the picture. This had to be Time Lord technology, the amount of things he just had in this little fur pouch.
For real.
But he burns the picture, and while they're all freaking out, he whips out this razor, and he's just like, I got a razor. It's a nice razor. Yeah, I'm going to slice your hand open now. Like,
right. And then he cuts Franklin, and that's when they finally kick him out of the car.
And then Franklin cries like a little baby.
He just got Sure.
Yeah, fair. But you kind of get an indication where the plot's going when, if you're paying attention, you just watch him mark the vehicle with his blood, which is never probably a good sign. But the shot, there's a mirroring shot. The first shot of them picking him up and the shot of them dropping him off and him mirroring it and him marking the car are pretty much from the same camera angle. And it would make one of the best horror desktop wallpapers you could probably find.
Sure.
I think so. It's like a fucked up version of like the Microsoft like field desktop wallpaper. That's what I would have. I might go home and change my wallpaper to that.
So they keep going and they decide to stop at this place that looks kind of like a gas station, like old fashioned, one pump. And they ask if they got any gas. They don't have any gas.
Which I imagine is an allusion to the 70s gas crisis.
Must be, yeah.
It either is or it's just a way to keep them in town.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure which. Given the time the movie came out, I think that was the point, is to not, it sets you up to not trust anybody.
Yes.
But the old man running the gas station, he sounds like he's just looking out. He's like, oh, you kids don't want to go messing around in no house. Come eat some barbecue, hang out for a while. Which probably just makes about anybody uncomfortable if someone like that's telling you just hang out here at my gas station. But they actually end up getting barbecue, which has some implications.
Real implications.
Yeah. They ate people, I think.
Yeah, I believe they ate people.
I'm not going to worry about kind of spoiling the movie as we go along. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure they ate people.
They ate people.
It's heavily implied. It's never confirmed.
They ate people.
They most definitely were eating people. None of that meat looked normal. None of it. It was not identifiable to the normal sane human eye. You're like, that is a sausage, but it does not look like any sausage I've ever seen. It looks wrong. But that is where we meet the cook. As he's stated on his IMDb page, he's just known as the cook.
Cook.
We'll get more to him later. He's funny enough. The cook is played by, Jim Sydow. Couldn't recall his name. Had to look at it. He is by far the most experienced actor at the set at the time. And it kind of shows. He is a great character actor. And he plays this side road gas station attendant barbecue man.
Yeah.
Really well.
Really well.
And he's very unsettling throughout the entire film.
Yes. And I would have driven away right when he told me there was no gas. I would have just left.
Ain't no gas here.
I would have left and probably gone home. There's something creepy about this whole town right now. I don't trust it.
But hey, they got what they needed from him, and that's directions to Franklin and Sally's grandpa's house.
And Franklin and Sally, that when they pull up to the house, it is very, very it's fallen apart.
It is completely overgrown and definitely abandoned. And the only thing I wrote is, why would you even want to stay here?
I said, well, that's inviting. And then wrote on my list of things I wouldn't do, going inside a house that could fall apart on me.
On one end, I'm like, this is a prime example of really dumb decisions. But on the other, I'm like, man, I love urban exploration. I would love to just walk around this place.
Nope, not going in there. Anywhere that's gonna invite bad spirits, I ain't touching that.
But we probably get the most character work with Mr. Jerry, Disco Stew, during this whole kind of sequence, and like he just keeps trying to flirt around with Sally. And I just want to say that while Kirk is the most generic 70s man I've ever seen in my life, Jerry is the most stereotype 70s man I've ever seen in my life. And I just needed to give him a quick shout out of appreciation, because he definitely carries the whole house sequence just by existing.
Yeah, and he's really got Sally laughing. Like, wow, she laughs a lot and so loud. So loud. And just doesn't stop laughing for like a whole good 5 minutes of this movie.
It's because he's hilarious, okay?
Stay close, stranger. The room awaits you after these messages.
Did she stop for a second and let him tell a joke?
No.
I didn't hear that. And
You laughed at all my jokes, and now we're settled in, and you don't laugh at my jokes as much.
I do laugh at your jokes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Did
That's
I not
nice.
just laugh at your joke?
Okay, maybe.
But anyway, so Franklin tries to get into the house, which is not handicap accessible.
It's very much missing a ramp.
No
Oh.
ramp. Everybody's upstairs. The poor guy is like, hey guys, help me.
I'm having so much fun. I don't even know if I'll be able to take it. And he starts just blowing raspberries.
Yeah, that man is angry. He is not having it.
Bro is just not having a good time.
No.
But as he's exploring around, wheeling around the first floor, because, he's just poor guy.
That's what I have written, this poor guy.
He stumbles upon some witchy shit. It's not witchy.
Shit.
It's not actually witchy shit, but it looks like some witchy shit.
No, that's a hex. They got hexed.
Yes, but no. I think they just were trying to freshen up the place. Some new decor, some bones hanging from the ceiling, a nice little weird skull nest. That's something that everyone needs in their home.
Yeah. Where do y'all keep your skull nests? I keep mine on the toilet. I think it's a really good decoration for the bathroom.
But then moving on, but then Kirk and Pam get this bright idea of, let's go to the swimming hole. I heard there's a swimming hole, which is slang for they want to go mess around, probably.
Yep.
But on the horizon, there's a little windmill and a little tippy toe of a house. And Kirk gets the genius idea. We'll go ask those strangers for gas, and then we can go. And then he's like thinking of all of the mental gymnastics of, I could give him my guitar and some money, and then I'll come back and give them some gas in return, because he hears a generator going.
Yes.
Now, quick side tangent. The first time I saw this movie, I was probably about 13. Anytime since then, I have heard a generator, just that murmuring sound that generators make. I think of this movie and it makes me unsettled. It's like a weird connection.
So it worked. So the movie worked on you.
Yeah, and the movie works to this day.
The movie still works on you.
Whenever I hear generator, I think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a correlation that I don't think anyone else has.
That's probably not true. That's probably not true, because the amount of people who probably play the video game also associate that sound with either Texas Chainsaw Massacre or what's the name of the other one that I'm forgetting?
Name of the other one? Dead by Daylight?
Yeah, Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
But they're real geniuses. And, maybe it's just a different time and I'm stupid. But Kirk gets the bright idea to, just walk into the house.
Whoa, wait.
Oh, I skipped the cars.
Yeah, so they walk up to the house. First of all, they touch these people's stuff. There's stuff blocking off this little fenced in area. And that's when we get the next thing on my list I wouldn't do, which is touch other people's shit. I would not do that.
Of things Ashton wouldn't do, sponsored by JumperScape.
And it's just a fenced-in area full of cars. And they don't look old. They all look like pretty new, not run down cars. It doesn't look like anyone would just abandon these. The one of them is a really, really cute little beetle.
Which I would call red flag number 1, but it's probably more like red flag number 5 or 6, maybe even 7.
I was like, if this is not a red flag for you, you have an issue.
But Kirk is just like, Pam, look. And it's just never like a worry.
He's
it's
like,
just like,
oh, cool, they got cars.
Oh yeah, look at there. I mean, I feel like the normal person would assume they're just working on all these cars, but then again, why are they hidden? Because the thing, they're like camouflaged away from like sight.
There are so many points where I would have turned around and never come back.
But our first sign of human bodies is Kirk just finds a tooth on the patio.
It drops from somewhere
and
inexplicably.
And he has just a normal human reaction to be like, "Hey, Pam," and puts it in her hand, and that's how you get rid of Pam from this scene temporarily, is because she's run away like, we should go. This is dumb.
And that's when he knocks on the door several times. And after not getting any response, he then opens their door and yells into the house.
Hello, anybody here?
Anybody home? Anybody? And then he hears some weird noises down a hall.
Pig squeals.
Yeah, down a really creepy hall.
The creepiest like wall I've ever seen is just that red painted wall with animal skulls plastered all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, if I have a basement that has a wall in the door, want to recreate it.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not gonna lie.
We are not doing that.
we could have a giant metal door that I can slam.
No,
Please,
oh
please,
James.
Okay.
And then he does the next thing on my list of things I wouldn't do, which is to walk into somebody else's home uninvited. I am like a vampire. I am not walking through somebody else's doorway without being invited.
And not just any doorway, this doorway.
Yeah, this specifically.
This house is the epitome of don't go in. Don't walk into this building. This building is a unsafe place because you can see that the people who live here might not be the most welcoming.
But obviously we know people were more trusting in the 70s because all the serial killers that would hitchhike and kill people. Or
that was more of an 80s thing. So it hadn't happened
both.
Yet.
It's a little bit both.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
But then we get the first appearance of the sweet, sweet boy, Leatherface. And probably one of my favorite kills in movie history because it is so it's real. It's uncomfortably
so real.
He just comes out, hits him with a hammer, and Kirk convulses on the floor for an uncomfortable amount of time. Not screaming, no screaming.
No, it's just boom, he's dead.
Boom, he's twitching, convulsing, and then he hits him one more time.
Dead. Slams
the door. And it's one of the most iconic scenes in film history.
And such a quick first death. They don't linger on it.
Absolutely nowhere.
No, and there's no buildup. Suddenly Leatherface is there, and suddenly Kirk is dead.
And that's the last of Kirk that we see. Honestly, I mean, not really, but and that little kind of hint of smart that Pam had kind of went away for a second.
Yeah,
because first off, we get another one of the most iconic shots in horror history, and that's Pam, that low angle of Pam approaching the house. Ass full on display.
Oh
yeah. One of the stories I love is the actress who played Pam,
Terry McMinn.
was horrified of that when she saw it in theaters.
Oh no.
Just to see just full on display, just a full like 30-second shot of her ass walking up to this house. It makes me happy that later in life she's just like, I love it. It's amazing, but
feel yourself, girl.
It's a great shot that gets replicated a stupid amount of times.
So many times.
In not just in other movies, but in this franchise, and it's never the same. But the thing is, she honestly should have shouted a couple times and left at most, because she has the genius idea to go into the house as well.
Yep, and that's where I circled that that it was number 5 on my list. I circled a number 5 because, again, I would not walk into somebody else's house uninvited.
But as she is kind of just wandering, she stumbles across my favorite furniture in the movie, bone couch.
Bone couch.
This room,
so frightening.
I don't know what the purpose of this room is. I guess it's just a sitting living room kind of deal.
But it's covered in feathers.
It's just covered in feathers. There's just kind of miscellaneous bones everywhere. And one of the most morbidly beautiful couches I've ever seen in my life.
God, it's
just
terrifying.
made out of a human skeleton.
Ugh.
And she kind of gets the hint that I should get out of here, except she doesn't, because she starts heading towards the basement, and guess who's there? It's the sweet boy. It's Leatherface, and we get one of the other iconic shots. There's so many iconic shots in this movie.
It's the hook scene. It's
not the hook scene. That's the next iconic shot. It's her running out the door
scene first. Sorry.
And Leatherface just grabbing her around the waist and pulling her back in. It is so horrifying. I just remember being like 9 years old and seeing just into the still image of that scene and being so scared of this movie before I ever even saw it. And he drags her back inside and just sticks her on a meat hook. And the thing this movie does very effectively is the implied horror is much worse than what you actually see, because you see him just approaching the meat hook and you're tensing up. You're like, oh God, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this.
In fact, because like I said, I know a little bit about horror, but not like a whole ton. I knew the meat hook scene is very iconic, very important to horror history. So I see the meat hooks and I go, oh my God, I don't know that I'm ready for this. I don't know that I'm ready for this.
And while the actual scene is horrifying, you don't really see much.
No.
It's just the implication.
There was a little bit of relief, actually, that I didn't see much.
Yes, but the implication, you see him just kind of put her up there and she stays. Oh. And while you don't see the meat hook go into her body, just imagining what that feels like is enough to like send a shiver like going all the way up your body. And I love it. I hate it, but I love it. But that's our second kill of the movie. Kind of. Yeah. She's not dead yet. But, you know, and I just love that Leatherface just kind of puts her up there and casually just starts carving up Kirk's body.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's what I meant when I said that's not the last you see of Kirk. You just see him laying on a table getting carved, which once again, what this movie does really well is implies things more than you actually see it. It's honestly probably more of a budget thing than anything else, but it works for the mind because you just kind of imagine yourself helpless on a meat hook watching, it's never really made clear, but your significant other, I guess, getting just carved up with how would you feel?
Oh, don't ask me that. I'm not imagining that.
How would you feel if I'm getting carved up by a man wearing another man's face?
We're not going there. Please, God, don't let us go there. I can't do that right now. I swear.
Fair enough. But
how would you feel?
This whole movie kind of becomes a little fetch quest for the last person who went missing. Because now it's Jerry's turn to be like, where is everybody? Let me go look.
And that leads me to my next thing I wouldn't do. Walk anywhere alone.
Yeah, because he just walked up alone. I mean, he has a lot of great shots of the Texas sun just kind of gleaming off of him,
Yeah.
As he approaches his own death. But he's just like, wandering, doing like the most disco strut I've ever seen in my life. He's like, I'm going to figure this stuff out,
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't go well for Disco Stew because he is the third human being to walk into someone's house without knowing if anyone's home.
Yep. And I put a star by my list.
Yeah, and we get a great, like really good jump scare. Because he goes into the room with the meat hooks and you see that Pam's not there anymore. And you're like,
where did Pam go?
And I don't know who gets this instinct, but he does. He's like, let me go check that freezer there.
Something's knocking on the freezer. She's knocking on the inside of the freezer.
This is a great example of how bad my memory is. I didn't
She's
write
knocking
that down.
on the inside of the freezer. I didn't even write it down.
He hears knocking.
Right. But it's kind of implied that she's like half alive still.
Yeah, she's still kind of, she's got a little left, which is terrifying to think about.
Oh God.
But he opens it, she springs up out of it.
The sound effects are too goofy for the moment. It like kind of brought me out of the jump scare, honestly. Because it's like kind of like, I don't know, it was almost like
because we got another flashbulb.
Yeah. Oh yeah, didn't we?
Yeah, and then Leatherface just storms in, hits him with a hammer. It's over.
Yeah,
like
he's dead.
All the kills in this movie are so sudden and out of nowhere, and I love that because honestly, when kills are drawn out, super dramatic, it takes me. That's just not how things happen probably in real life.
Well,
it's sudden and it's not bombastic. It's shocking.
I'd like to also point out that the only kills it seems like they take their time with are with the women. The men in this movie get killed instantly.
Well, we only see one woman dies.
2.
1.
2. Oh yeah, 1. But they're taking their time with killing the second one.
Which, that is a whole discussion.
Yeah.
This movie definitely would fall into the exploitation genre of the 70s. It's definitely the most famous out of all of them. That is the time period it came out in. So it's not shocking that is a thing. Because
and it also plays into a lot of just like the psyche of killers. A lot of times what you find, I mean, there tends to be more male serial killers and they tend to kill women. So I think it kind of plays into the whole like thing that psyche that goes with that, which is like, this is a woman. I'm going to take my time and torture her. It
plays into that, but I don't feel that Leatherface's motivations do, if that makes sense. Because we do get this shot after he kills Stu where he's just staring out in the window and he's licking his teeth, and honestly, like, my only thought is him just wondering, where are all these teenagers coming from? Because he definitely is kind of portrayed as, I don't know if this is a politically correct term, simple. That it, like, in terms of like the times, he's the brute force of this family, and people come in, he kills them, and I think the drawn out nature of Pam's kill compared to the others is more something played to the audience than to Leatherface's actual motivation, because we'll talk about it more later, but you can tell that these men are not motivated by typical means. They are just depraved. They have one kind of unifying goal, and that is eat. And that is, family, defend this family. They're in our house. We can't let them get out. We can't let anyone see what's in here. Like,
well, my only counterpoint to that is there are no, other than the dead grandmother we see upstairs, there are no women in this family. So I wonder where they come from.
In this film, no. But there are Sawyer women. Very little. There's like, I think in the original timeline 2 that we know of.
Okay.
But
I feel that the implication that this original first film gives is at least from my perspective as a person who doesn't know anything about the entire timeline, is that they, for means of reproduction only, might use their victims for other things as well.
that is an interesting dissection. Is not true.
Not true by the time the second one comes out.
No, not true in this film. Because think about, we'll get to it, but think about the dinner scene.
Mm-hmm. No, that's what I was thinking about the entire dinner scene. So the point you're making is not making it to my brain.
I'll get to it when we get to the dinner scene.
Let's get there. Let's move on.
Because there is a important detail in that I wrote down that shows exactly how these men operate and how they think. Mm-hmm. And they don't care about any of that. Mm-hmm. And it adds to kind of the ambiguous nature of their motivations, because it is absolutely beyond what anyone like could even really come up with, if that makes any sense.
But let's get back to the movie. So after Jerry is dead, we go back to the house, and we've got Sally and Franklin hanging out. It's dark now, and they're hanging out by the car with the headlights on. And they're trying to decide whether or not they're gonna go look for Jerry. And actually, Sally says something along the lines of, "I'm not leaving without Jerry." And my note here is, news for you, girly. You are leaving without Jerry.
Little does she know. And speaking of the car being on, Franklin's like digging around like, the keys are gone. They took the keys.
The car is on.
But the lights are on, and there's no way that the lights can be on without the keys.
And you can hear the noise of the engine running. So the car is on. The keys are in the ignition, my dude. I don't know where you're looking, but they're in the
I don't know
ignition.
if it's oversight. It might be just oversight. It might be as simple as it goes.
Yeah, or just
because they clearly wanted the headlights as lighting,
right?
And but then that whole it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Because I was like, the van is on. There's no way anyone took the keys. The keys are in the van.
But that can be forgiven, that's okay.
No, it is forgiven because there's no plot hole there. Nobody comes back to use the car. So,
hey,
there's no reason that, they were going to leave the car anyway. So
maybe
there's no
Franklin's
reason
just
that it
panicking
matters.
and doesn't realize the keys are in the ignition.
And that could be it. Exactly. He was looking around the car, but was he looking in the ignition?
I don't know.
And Sally didn't look like for it the keys. So... his pocket knife's still missing. He never found that either. So,
that never really comes up again.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But, maybe he's just really bad at finding things.
That's a possibility. But speaking of finding things, they decide, hey, let's go find Jerry. Sally's trying to go alone because she's like, I'm not going to be able to push you down and up that hill.
Right.
And, Franklin's like, I'm not giving you the flashlight unless I come along. And
it's a very dramatic fight that they have.
It is.
Because they are both screaming.
But eventually she just goes and he just follows her. So he kind of takes the choice out of the matter. And they go through this I don't know if you'd even call it woods, brush, maybe.
Kind of more like brush.
Very spooky brush. Kind of headed toward the house. And Franklin keeps saying he hears something. And then
they stop for a second. And this jump scare got me so bad.
Leatherface just appears out of nowhere.
With chainsaw running and everything.
And it's Ashton like jumped out of the couch.
Shit out of me. I wasn't ready for it.
And he just starts slicing up Franklin and
immediately he jumps, he appears, and then his chainsaw is in Franklin's torso.
Yeah, in the fun little behind the scenes thing. The blood spurt effects was just Tobe Hooper under the wheelchair blowing blood through a tube. And that's how they accomplished that effect. Clearly, it didn't work that great because you don't really see that much blood, all things considered.
Yeah.
But I think that's really funny, so I had to bring it up.
And you know, it still worked, like, because you could still see blood splattering, but it's so dark that it doesn't even matter. You just kind of got to get the like idea of it, and your imagination just kind of takes it the rest of the way.
Exactly, and that's like, what this movie does so well. Is just everything that is graphic that is happening in the moment, because you get the after of things and you get the before. The things that you see happen to people, like the hook, the chainsaw attack, even the hammer strikes, you don't get a great look of. So you just kind of have to imagine what that looked like. What you imagine is always going to be worse than what you see.
Yeah.
And it's always done so well. And this is definitely like the fucking exclamation point on all of that. But then we get final girl circuit number 1, with Leatherface just chasing her all throughout those brush, getting all the way into the house. And look what he did to that goddamn door. Okay, so throughout this chase sequence, we get my next things I wouldn't do, which is scream while I'm running away from somebody and I could be hidden, because she could have gotten away from Leatherface several times if she just kept moving and shut the fuck up. Because the amount of times that Leatherface was just kind of going in the direction he last saw her, and then like she screams and then he bolts his head in her direction, then starts going that way. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I know it's scary, girly, but no one's gonna hear you out here. There's nobody else out here. You gotta just keep moving, and you know, it's just, you could have gotten away if you just would shut up. But we get our first little appearance of Grandpa in during this chase, and the implication is that he is not currently alive because he looks like a corpse. Yeah, I said clearly, girl, that is a dead man. Yeah, fun fact, the actor who plays Grandpa was like a 19-year-old or something along those lines. I forget how old he was. At the youngest, like 19. At the oldest, like 25. But the makeup job on him is so good because he does look like a corpse, and he doesn't move an inch when Sally first sees him. So you're just thinking it's another decoration. But after she sees him, Leatherface chases her up the stairs, and we get our very first Texas Chainsaw Massacre patented window jump. She just jumps through a fully glass paned window. I said, damn, strong girl. Which just, I at this point, I guess you could just call it's a running gag, jumping out of a glass paned window and just being mostly okay. She does sit there for a second, which I give credit for. At least I get the vibe that it's only because it was from the second floor, not the glass you went through. She got cuts from the glass. That is true. She did get cuts from the glass. Adrenaline is a hell of a thing. Yes, it is. She does stop screaming for about 10 seconds, which is good. But she does start screaming again, and then Leatherface finds her, even though she's on the other side of the house and could have gotten away if she wasn't screaming. But he chases her all the way back to the gas station. And then we get one of my favorite scenes where she just thinks she's safe. And honestly, if you're watching the movie, you think, okay, why would Leatherface stop chasing her?
Right.
Why would he care?
And so she gets into the gas station, and the gas station attendant guy, in fact,
which in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we know his name is Drayton Sawyer.
He says, "Whoa there," and I said, "My dude, she is not a horse."
Whoa there.
So she's like yelling at him to call the police, whatever, and he's like, "I'm gonna go get the truck. I'm gonna go get the truck," and he like picks her, he touches her, he keeps like petting her, which is where we get to my final thing. I think. Yeah, the final thing on my list of things I would do, which is let a man I don't know touch me like that.
Stay close, stranger. The room awaits you after these messages.
Which it is the first of many red flags before all is revealed here. The final kind of this, I would say, second to final vibe check that she gets is she looks at the smoker in the and just kind of examines the meat. And while there's no clear visual of human meat where you can tell 100% sure, the long shot of the meat in the smoker and look on her face shows the connections being made in her brain. This is not a safe space.
Nope.
And Drayton Sawyer, the cook, comes back in and is the scariest thing ever. He's just casually holding a burlap sack and he pulls a rope out and he's just smiling. And it is so scary.
And then he goes, nobody's gonna hurt you. And then immediately after saying that, smacks her with a broom.
The scene of him just smacking her with the broom, it's not supposed to be funny.
But it's hilarious.
It's hilarious because he's so excited about it. And my brain just tells me there's no way this hurts that bad because of how lightly he's just kind of like, and he's just giggling, and it might be messed up.
Somehow it knocks her out.
It does somehow. He's just hitting her with not even like the stick, the actual
broom part of the broom, like
and he just there's kind of this moment where he's tying her up. And there's just this kind of like lighthearted country music playing in the background. And I'm like, this is so unsettling. It's also so comedically ironic that I can't help but enjoy this scene because he's sitting there just like, oh, yeah, you can't run away now. Like while this like this calming country music's just playing in the background. But he's he gets her into the car and he just starts poking her with the broom handle, like,
which I didn't really get. He's like, I don't want you to get too comfortable there. I'm like, oh, what? She's tied up. You don't also have to hit her with the broom.
Don't worry, we're almost there. And starts poking her again.
And there's this shot. So as he's driving, we see headlights pass. And then randomly he gets all tense. And then there's a shot of headlights coming towards them. And I'm like, we've seen so many other cars pass you. Why do you care about this singular car?
Maybe he was just too busy poking her with a stick.
that he forgot that he was on a road and he could get caught or something. I don't know.
But speaking of headlights, when he approaches the house, we get probably my favorite shot of him just beating nubbins in front of the headlights. It's almost like Kubrick, this shot. It's actually really good. Mm-hmm. But I'm just laughing because Nubbins is just an idiot. And it's just you see this interaction. I don't know if you picked up on this. They're all brothers.
Oh.
Yes. I know he's way older.
I thought that was their dad.
Nope. They're all brothers.
Oh, okay.
So it's just 3 brothers living in this house. We don't find out. The thing is, I like to watch this movie on an island. A lot of the sequels are bad.
Mhm.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is the only sequel to the original timeline that I would say is fun and good.
Mhm.
But they're all siblings. And that's why you kind of get, I think it makes their interactions make a little more sense.
Mhm.
But Nubbins gets in the back of the truck and this
he is their brother?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all brothers.
Because there's a moment where it feels like he's disciplining all of them.
Yes, but they are brothers.
Okay.
And that's not like a thing they came up with later. That is just how it is.
Okay.
He's obviously the oldest by a country mile.
Yeah, for sure.
But they are all brothers. And speaking of brothers, we get my favorite line in the entire movie. Look what your brother did to that door.
Look what your brother did to the door.
And to be fair, lines like that make you think that he's their dad.
Yeah.
Because why would he refer to him as your brother when it's also his brother? But that's besides the point. This is all just a prelude to...
Well, okay, but and then he goes up to Leatherface and like goes to, are you sure they're all dead? Are you sure this? And it's like he's trying to find a reason to like get mad and punish him, because then he pauses for a second because he's like, oh, he did everything right. Shit. Look what you did to that door. And then he starts whacking him with the same fucking stick.
And this is when Leatherface has his old lady cooking dinner, like getting dinner ready, like fit on. He has some old lady's face. Only appearance of that mask in the movie is just him like in a nice little apron, like just trying to get the house together,
Yeah.
But the hitchhiker's tying up Sally, getting her ready for dinner, and that's when we hear Drayton say like, "Go get your grandpa." And we don't get confirmation till later, but you bring back grandpa's corpse-looking body. But that is all just leading up to one of the best sequences in horror movie history, and that is this dinner scene. This dinner scene is one of the most horrific, horrifying things I've seen in a movie. You get a full image of this family and their depraved nature laid out in front of you. And not only was it hell in the movie, it was hell behind the scenes, because when people recall the filming of this sequence, they can't. So the times vary, but it took them either between 18 to 36 hours.
Holy crap.
And not only that, but it was in the middle of the Texas summer. And inside that room with studio lights, it's tarped off. It was over 100 degrees. And left and right, like Gunnar Hansen, who plays Leatherface, had to run out and puke a couple times. Like, it was horrific to shoot. And I think that is shown in the performances in the movie, because it is a horrific scene.
So, but before we get to dinner, they bring Grandpa down and they cut her finger and feed Grandpa her blood.
He does his little happy dance.
He does a little happy dance. And I wrote down, so Grandpa is Edward Cullen.
Jesus. Way to insert your interests like that.
It's the whole point. It's a podcast.
Well, okay. Well, when we recorded our actual first episode, this is not our actual first episode. You'll find that out later. It took you 25 minutes to not bring up Five Nights at Freddy's. So, about 3 hours before a Twilight reference. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I can't wait until we get to Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm gonna lose my mind.
You're gonna carry that episode.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
excited.
I know everything about Five Nights at Freddy's. Everything.
But speaking of Five Nights at Freddy's, so this dinner scene, they're not eating pizza.
Unfortunately,
I just love you just see ambiguous meat on
all
these
the
plates.
ambiguous meat. It makes my stomach churn.
And shout out to my second favorite decoration in the Sawyer house is the face lamp above the table. All this going back, obviously inspired by Ed Gein and all of his people furniture, which is a terrible term that I should not use, but I used it anyway. He
did people wearing too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did people wearing.
Yeah. So that's where that comes from as well.
Yes. This is probably the most true to Ed Gein out of all of the movies he's inspired. That is definitely a fact.
Maybe Silence.
Maybe. Buffalo Bill's pretty close.
Buffalo Bill is really close. Anyway, continue.
But this is where you kind of get a peek into how this family thinks and how they operate, because Sally, she doesn't flat out say it, but she says, "I'll do anything you want." And they clearly don't care. That is not what motivates them. What motivates them is
killing.
It's
not
food.
even eating.
It's a sadistic enjoyment.
It's killing.
Of killing body parts and the family.
Well, I guess killing isn't the cook's motivation. The cook's motivation is like his family,
because quote unquote
everybody else's is killing.
You kind of get the cook kind of gets bullied for a little bit here, because they were basically calling him a wimp, and he's just like, "Oh, I can't take no pleasure in killing, but there's some things you got to do, and and that kind of leads into like the most morbidly funny part of the movie, where they're like, "Oh, we'll have Grandpa do it. Grandpa's the best. Grandpa's the best at killing there ever was."
I wonder if as well as along with Ed Gein, if they saw that poster that they've got in high schools everywhere about commas, where it says, "Let's eat, Grandpa. Let's eat, Grandpa." to help with the inspiration.
Full stop. I don't know what posters you're talking about.
Okay, guys, when you listen to this episode, get directly on the Discord and just spam images of this poster. I know other people have seen it. I bring this up in conversation all the time, and people know what I'm talking about.
I've never seen this poster.
I'm going to be showing you immediately when we're done.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's eat, Grandpa. For what feels like 20 minutes, but it's probably more like 3. They just keep putting this hammer in Grandpa's hands with her head over a fucking bucket. And he just keeps flopping out of his hands. And it's so suspenseful, because you're like, it's going to hit her head one of these times.
One of these times it's going to hit her head.
And it does, but because it just fell,
it only does a little bit of damage.
It does a little bit of damage, and it's not fun to look at. No. But she kind of springs up.
So what happens is the hitchhiker, he's like, just let me do it. And he lets go of her, and she immediately takes the chance, springs up, runs behind her, and jumps through yet another window.
That is window number 2 in the series of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Window number 2.
We will keep a window count going as we go through the series, which we are not doing all in a row. It's just I know we're going to get to them eventually.
I'm writing it down.
2 windows were casualties of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Second window is actually probably more iconic than the first window, because it leads to probably
the most
iconic chase in the movie.
The most iconic chase, because I know this chase, having tried to avoid media surrounding this movie.
Because you see, there's this really long run down their driveway, and the hitchhiker eventually catches up, and he's just slashing at her back, and I'm just like, this would suck.
Oh yeah.
But the pure adrenaline probably just keeps her running. And he finally catches up to her, and we get this really fun shot because this giant semi truck just runs him over.
Oh my God, yeah.
And here's how.
Oh my God, that's all my notes say about this is, oh my God.
It's actually a pretty classic trick they used. They just had the actor wave his arms as the truck was right up to him, and it's played in reverse. The truck just backed up, and they played it in reverse, so it looked like he went and hit him. But you see you see this dummy corpse filled with meaty junk get run over by this truck, and it is so satisfying.
It is satisfying.
But he's a terrible human being.
Oh my
and you're
God,
like,
it made me want to barf.
It's good to get a little bit of comeuppance for everything that you just put poor Sally through.
Okay.
But this truck driver, the Leatherface catches up and just starts slashing at the truck driver's door. And this semi-truck driver, he runs away. What happened to him?
He got into the...
No, he didn't.
He didn't get into the truck?
No, he didn't get into the other truck. He ran in the opposite direction.
Oh.
He just runs away, and I'm like, how long did he have to run?
Well, Leatherface just gave up.
Yeah, he didn't chase him.
He does his little chainsaw dance.
Like, I want to know what happened because a pickup truck comes by, and, you know, Sally gets him to stop, jumps into the back of the pickup, and you get your iconic shot of her
scream laughing,
basically having a complete breakdown.
Complete break.
Of both relief and horror as she drives off into the sunset, or sunrise rather, because sun was down last time we saw daylight, saw outside, and now it's up. Scream laughing as Leatherface does a little dance, just twirling around in circles, waving his chainsaw. And that's the end of the movie.
That's it. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And I love this movie. It's definitely befitting of our first episode of this podcast. I'm glad that there was so much pressure on my brain on what to do first. And this was definitely a great pick.
My thoughts on this movie are, it's a really, like, it's a gross movie, but it's kind of like an easy watch. Like, I found myself not having to take notes half the time because I was able to keep up with where I was in the movie, you know, what was happening, because it's pretty straightforward. You're not jumping around from place to place too often, and scenes are very distinguishable from each other. So that was what made it really good for this podcast, because other movies, ones to cover in the future, are not so easy to follow. And in general, just it's so gory by also being not so gory. It's kind of interesting. Like, we don't see everything that happens in the kills, which is what you kind of like expect from a gory type movie.
The movie is called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the.
My mistake.
That's a different movie, James.
But it's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're probably expecting to see some people absolutely gutted by a chainsaw.
Oh yeah,
but you don't really. There's only one kill
with a chainsaw. One kill with the chainsaw. It's just that the chainsaw is just so iconic.
It is.
Not call it Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This movie is probably the reason that chainsaws are even like seen as a horror object. Like, you go to any Halloween haunt during the Halloween season, they got one guy with a chainsaw.
There's always that one guy.
You know, and half the time, guess who they're dressed as? Leatherface.
Or a version of Leatherface.
Something inspired by Leatherface. Like, this movie is extremely important. While I don't view it as the first slasher personally, I think it is heavily influential.
Very influential.
I am one of those Halloween is the first slasher.
It doesn't, and
based on genre, not content, because I feel like if we're talking about content, there's a lot of inspiration going back in horror history, but I think the first one is Halloween. But this is definitely the progenitor to what Halloween did.
Yeah, because, before watching the movie, I had heard that a lot of people consider Texas Chainsaw Massacre to be the first slasher. So I was just kind of expecting that slasher type vibe.
Doesn't have it at all.
It doesn't have it. It's not the same.
It's a grindhouse movie through and through.
Yeah, it's not a... it doesn't do the things that slashers do that kind of build so much suspense up to a kill. I feel like kills are pretty much like, bam, they're dead. Bam, they're dead in this. And also, I don't think there was any point of view from the killer, was there? Oh, no, there was. When he's killing Franklin, there was one.
It's more over the shoulder than anything,
I guess.
But I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of some wrap up thoughts. This movie's absolutely a must watch for any horror fan. It's one of my favorites. It's one of the most important movies I could think of, not just in horror, but in cinema. And if you haven't seen this movie and you're here at the end of the podcast, how dare you?
James, how many broken windows out of 10 do you give this movie?
Oh, well, this is a 9.5 broken windows for me.
9.5 broken 9.5. Alrighty. That's a good score. I think it's about a 8.5 broken windows for me.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Fair. Please leave in the Discord how many broken windows you would give Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Join us in the Discord and let us know how many broken windows you give Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Exactly. But yeah, once again, if you've not seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, please.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 1976, directed by Tobe Hooper. 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper. Okay. Please give it a watch and tell us what you think.
Yes. And watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That is a different movie. It's a remake.
It is a different movie. But
yeah.
Actually the Netflix one, it's technically a sequel.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I thought it was a remake.
It gets confusing.
Or is it the one that's just 2 words? That's the remake. That was 2013.
No,
Texas
that's
Chainsaw.
Also a sequel.
It's
sequel. Very confusing. I thought
I was only getting into confusing things with the Halloween series.
Before we end here, let me explain the timeline. You have the original timeline, which is Texas Chainsaw 1, 2, 3, and 4, The Next Generation, starring Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Yeah. Then you have the remake timeline, which is A New Beginning and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then you have the new timeline, which is Texas Chainsaw. No, Leatherface, 2017. This is not release order. This is their chronological order.
Okay.
Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, Texas Chainsaw 3D, and then the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix movie. I forget the exact title.
I don't know the timeline.
That is the timeline.
Okay.
That is the exact timeline. It's not as convoluted or annoying as Halloween, but it's pretty close.
I thought I wasn't going to get into this stuff until we got to Halloween or Friday the 13th.
No, there's a lot of it.
Oh, God.
But once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today.
Yeah.
And if you just bear with me while I try to get through this part of the podcast, because I'm still getting used to plugging. But if you would like to join us and talk to us and hang out, talk horror, you can join us at discord.gg/JumperScape. And if you'd like to support us, help us, maybe do some more exciting things in the future, evolve this podcast, you can support us on patreon.com/JumperScape. And you wouldn't be alone because we have plenty of people. On the library, we read out all the tiers, but I am a notorious mushmouth, so I would just like to give a good shout out to Dark Salad 42, Lactation of Regret, Dick Hammer Bush, It's Default 456, Lactating Gator, Last Dawn Reactions, Cool Blaze, Kyle Hooley, Margarita Ortega, Mo Maggot Yalin, Spartan Habuko, G156, Lactation of Mercy, Addy, Big Feet the Pondered, Dylan, Gara's Vacarian, Lactating Milk MT, LPU Soldier, Mass the Merc 664, Onyx Diablo X, Perplex Panic 1, Potassium, Preacher, Vermin, Connor Clark, Brian Pfeiffer, Eliza, Keith G077, Oddball here, JX O'Malley, Aussie ODST, Austin Taylor, Damian Groth, Dragon Eye, Drew Ledbetter, Hayden Hamilton, It's Default 2.0. You're there twice. That's crazy. Default. Very fun. Jacob Adium, Pity 104, Tyler Neal, Wraith, X3TN, Keegan, Ungoy, Food Nipple, my favorite human being that's ever existed. And yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's everybody.
We love you.
We love you so much.
I love you.
But then once again, thank you for joining us for the very first time in room 237.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us this evening, stranger. If you enjoyed your time with us, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/JumperScape or join the community at discord.gg/JumperScape. We thank you for your listenership and hope you enjoyed.